Unlock Your Soul Radio with your host, Lorraine White.
Hello and welcome to Unlock Your Soul Radio Show. I am your host, Lorraine White. I'm a life strategist and an intuitive, connecting you to your soul to find clarity and direction in your life. Happy Thursday. I hope you've had a good last couple of weeks. There was no show last Thursday because I actually had parents' evening with my son Dylan, and that went really well. Came home feeling like the proud parent, as it were. And so tonight the show is about the Shero's journey. It's entitled The Shero's Journey. So several years ago, I discovered the term the hero's journey, which was coined by the late Joseph Campbell, who was a mythologist and a writer. And what the hero's journey is it explains the different stages of the adventure that we call life. And so as we go through life, through this adventure, we will go through certain trials, tribulations, and challenges. And as a result, we'll gain much wisdom and we'll become very knowledgeable and learn the lessons to the extent of then being able to save our lives. And then moving forward, being able to save other people's lives and become the ultimate hero. So my guest tonight is Lisa Cherry, and she's a Life Change Facilitator. Now, I did all of my research with regards to Lisa's work and her life, and I even read one of her books, The Soul's Journey. And what kind of came to me was the fact that her story is very much a classic example of the hero's journey, and this is why I entitled the show The Shero's Journey, because Lisa is a female hero. So I'm really excited to have Lisa on the show and to find out more about her hero's journey. So I'm going to welcome Lisa to the show. Hello, Lisa.
Hello. I don't know what happened, but we just got cut off, and I thought, technology is such a fantastic thing until it's not.
How are you apart from the blip that we've just had?
Well, it's wonderful to be here, and I'm very excited for all the people that are going to be able to have a long weekend this weekend and have a rest, because we all work very, very hard, I think, and there's nothing like that opportunity to just take a little bit of time out and just replenish the soul and take some time. None of that, I'm going to fit in 5 minutes of self-care. No, this weekend, I want everyone to fit in hours of self-care and self-nurture. That's my message for tonight.
Yeah. It is a lovely time, actually, to be having the show tonight, and then knowing that tomorrow we've got the rest, the 4-day rest. So Lisa, could you introduce yourself?
Wow, that's a bit of an ask. Okay, my name's Lisa Cherry, and it's lovely to be here. I'm an author, a speaker, and a trainer, and a chocolate lover, and a blog writer, and a painter, and a coffee snob, and a mother of teens. Wow.
You do a lot of things, Lisa, and very well from what I have seen. You're a trainer, an author, a life change facilitator, a teacher as well. I know you didn't say that, but that's how I see you as well. So tell me, Lisa, how did you get into this kind of work that you do, and what areas do you cover? Tell me a bit more.
Okay, well, we're all shaped by the things that happen to us, essentially. they form an internal architecture within us as to what we want to do. And I think that for me, that's what happened really. And after a very challenging adolescence, I really wanted to make a difference in the world. That's what I wanted to do. And I remember being 20 years old and just starting to get my life on track after my own traumas, and I wanted to make a difference. And I chose to do that at the time by going into the field of social work, which I stayed in for a number of years before moving across into education. And then 6 years ago, I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to strike up a work-life balance after the end of a relationship had ended about 7 years ago that had left me really dealing with opened wounds. That everything that I hadn't dealt with came up, and work was a struggle, and being a single parent with 2 children, and everything just culminated. And you often find that with self-employed people, that something happened. There was a health issue or a bereavement or the end of a relationship or something. Something happens where we look in the mirror and we say, actually, I want to do something different now. I need to do something different now. And that led me to start writing and training. And that's just grown and developed and evolved. And again, the self-employment journey is just the most incredible personal development journey ever created, that I had no idea what I was signing up for at all. But it's evolved into now training around the whole country all the time on trauma resilience and recovery, which just teachers to social workers to foster carers, to anyone that will listen to me, really. That's how that's kind of panned out in a nutshell. Yeah.
And so where does your interest in trauma, resilience and recovery come from? You mentioned about your earlier experience, but tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, what happened was when this relationship ended, which opened up a whole area for me that I just hadn't addressed, and I didn't know that I hadn't addressed it, because as far as I was concerned, I'd been in recovery for 20 years by then, because I'd set about, I'd become sober. I'd had my last drink at an AA meeting in 1990, and as far as I was concerned, I was continuously working on myself. I was continuously, consciously making the decision every day to live a life of recovery, and yet here I was at the age of 39, 40 with this massive wound opened up, which led me on a journey to have to go and deal with it. I had to go and deal with it, which I did through writing, through going back really to the beginning. And we're now in a place educationally where we have a very, very different understanding about trauma and about childhood adversity and about the impact of what happens to people who experience adversity. And we have that through neuroscience, which is at the very beginning of a very long journey itself. I mean, we know about an inch worth of 2 miles of knowledge. And it was once I realised the impact of separation at birth, the impact of trauma intergenerationally, the impact of having gone into care myself, the impact of the trauma of having been homeless. Once I understood that the impact that had on me in terms of traumatic events, then I was just hooked, and I wanted to know more and more and more, and I continued to do that. And I just, my thirst for that knowledge, for that understanding, for that science of human relationships and how that impacts upon us, I cannot quell that thirst. It's in terms of understanding myself, it has been phenomenal. And then in terms of being able to convey that to other people, to help create a shift in how we work with children and the outcomes that we can create when we work in that way and we understand them in that way and we take a relational approach to their behaviour, then that is something that I'm so passionate about that I dream about it.
So it's really, from what I'm hearing, it's like what you're passionate about is really finding ways of helping people to understand children in your case, because it's all concerned with looked after children, from what I remember.
Yes, I mean it's if we think about working with children, then we're thinking about working preventatively, but we have to work with adults as well, because resilient children need resilient adults. And so we have to think about how we work and support adults so that they are fit for purpose. I am fit for purpose. The people around me are fit for purpose in raising children, in understanding what happens to children when they have experienced adversity and trauma, and how we create an environment that is trauma aware.
Yeah, I understand. And so, because I remember when I did my research on you had said something along the lines of your kind of mission is about concerns of building a part of a resilient community. And what came to mind was it takes a whole village to raise a child. And I was curious to know, what support did you have when you were going through your tough times as a young person, and what solutions worked for you that perhaps impact your work now?
Well, that's interesting, because we lived in a very different era on many, many levels. I mean, 90% of what we know and understand about the brain and the brain as a social organ we've learned in the last 20 years. Also, during the 80s, we didn't have the same legislation in place that protected vulnerable children that we have now.
No.
So things were very, very different then. So for me personally, at the end of the 80s, as an 18, 19, 20-year-old, I was able to move into adulthood in a very transformative way, where the trajectory of adulthood was changed for me because I had the support of around 7 different charities.
Right.
So I think that that's really, really crucial and important, and that's something that is for the whole of a life. That it's one thing waking up and saying, I do not want this to be my life anymore. I do not want this to be the way that I live anymore. I want something different for myself. And it's quite another to have a pathway around you to enable that to happen. One without the other is not going to work.
So it's so important to have that support network.
Well, we're not individuals. You know, we're individuals in so much as we're all wired up incredibly differently, because the wiring that we have in our brain is completely and utterly created by every single social interaction that we've ever had, especially the ones that we had in the first 3 years of life. However, we're born to connect. So we have to be connecting to other people. We can't do anything on our own, actually. The idea that anyone is out there doing anything on their own is a nonsense. We have to have the people around us, and there are many layers of that system. You know, there's the people immediately around us, then there's the people in the next layer and the next layer. You know, there's a whole ecosystem that operates around us. But the vulnerability that I had at the time meant that the people that were supporting me and helping me to move me out were not that close to me. You know, they were organisations. But by doing what they did, they placed me in a position whereby I was able to get close connections and start to build up that picture of you accept me, I accept you.
Yeah. And so how does that now affect the way that you work and your approach?
Well, I want to just get to as many people as possible. So that's why I love training and I love moving around the country, because I'm interested in the ripples, really. The ripples of connection, the ripples of love, the ripples of creating change and making a difference. And I do think that we live now, I think we're in really negative energy at the moment, particularly politically. However, there are many, many people now who are transforming and growing and waking up and becoming conscious. And if we all can kind of connect with each other, then we can create quite a massive ripple, and we can, not connect with the negative, of which there is so much in the world. If that's what if that's your thing, there's an awful lot of it about. We have to seek out. We have a duty to seek out how we can make a difference and kind of connect with one another and have a ripple that creates a positive change. So I'm interested in being part of that bigger picture, really. So that's how I see things.
So you tend to, what you do, you train people who are in the system, helping, who are in the system, serving the looked after children, like the schools, the carers, the foster parents. Is that correct? Yeah.
But it's important, I think, when we think about trauma-aware environments, that, a trauma can happen to anybody. And if we have an environment that means that when or if that happens, it's able to deal with it and manage it, then we don't have that whole them and us thing, you see, where we focus just on vulnerable children. Because actually we're all vulnerable and we're all resilient. Right. We're both,
But we are all connected, is what I see. We are all connected, and we can't be separate because we are all connected. I think that's what you're saying as well. And so with you doing the trauma work, it's almost like you're educating people about their own story so that they are able to empathize rather than sympathize with who they are serving.
Yeah, because I think it's very easy for people to get caught up in that wouldn't happen to me. That's not about me. That doesn't affect me. And actually that misses the whole point about our connection as human beings, really.
And so through doing this work, what has been the unexpected benefits that you have experienced?
Well, I guess just being connected to so many different people, and people being so kind of, generally speaking, people get very excited about this stuff. People who work in those fields are naturally interested in people. So any information that's all about people and how we tick and how we connect and how we roll, is intriguing to people. And that's so lovely to be sometimes the spark of someone else's enthusiasm is really inspiring to watch. That's just a really wonderful thing. In much the same way as I have, I'm inspired all the time. And that, again, that's that ripple, isn't it? I learn something, I watch something, someone has taught me, they've inspired me, I've created something from it, I take that somewhere, that inspires other people. And we have these ripples of enthusiasm and excitement and inspiration. And I think I don't know if that was unexpected, but it's certainly a joy that I perhaps hadn't anticipated to watch. It's a joy to watch. Yeah,
because from what I see, your work is very unique. You have a very different take on working with. I'm being careful with my words because I don't want to, but working with the people that you work with, it's like you have a very unique approach, because maybe this has been rather, quite conventional. People may have had a more conventional approach, but it feels like your approach is a bit more edgy, let's say. Would you agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, I certainly talk about things like love and spirituality and connection, and that can be quite challenging for some people. In some areas, and that's okay. I'm okay with that, because the work, for example, of foster carers, to me is just love. You're doing something every single day of which you're never going to see the outcome, or you might see the outcome, but chances are you won't. That often feels relentless. That's 24 hours a day. If that's not love and that's not spiritual practice, I don't know what is. So it's very difficult to have conversations about this work without bringing that into it. And I think it would be wrong for me not to bring that element in. But of course, that's uncomfortable for some people. Looking at even doing meditation, I've done in schools, and that can be very uncomfortable for people. In terms of thinking about teachers doing some self-nurture practice. And some self-care practice, and this work pushes people's buttons. As much as it brings people together and infuses them and inspires them, because you cannot think about the human condition and things that happen without thinking about yourself. It's impossible to sit and spend time thinking about how one's experiences create you without thinking about you and the way you have parented and the way you have been parented. And that can bring up stuff for people. There's not really any way around that. And that's, this is difficult stuff in that sense. And my hope is that, people come back and offer an opportunity for us to have a space to work with that. Often that's not the case in training, and I would say that's the only thing I feel sad about sometimes, that I'm pushing buttons for people and they may not necessarily have the right places to go to afterwards to then allow that to unfold. But, that's not even my business, because if I've done that, then the universe will take care of making sure that person is okay and has the right support around them. But I would like sometimes just to kind of have the opportunity to explore more with somebody, and sometimes just hug. Sometimes after training, people just want to have a hug. Because they felt a sense of human connection that says we're the same, we're not different. There's so much effort is spent on looking at what makes us different, actually, rather than what makes us the same.
And I just as you're talking, I think that what you are doing is amazing, because you're really kind of humanizing the whole system, and I'm interested to know, what do you feel? Well, what is your vision kind of going forward with this work?
Well, apart from changing the world. Well, I suppose in a nutshell, it's connecting people to their humanness and people having some kind of self-love and self-care and forgiveness, just forgiveness of the mistakes that we make and the things that go wrong and the things that we can try and make right, and that the life course is exactly that. It's a life course, and I was thinking about, the other day, how it seems like the first part of your life is about making sense of who you are and what you'll tolerate and what you won't, and what's acceptable and what's not, and what your passions are. And, if you're lucky to get through that still alive, then the next part of your life is about expressing that and enjoying that. I suppose that means that you have to unpack your suitcase. That means you have to, unpack where you've come from and who you are. And if I can be part of that process with anybody, then that's very humbling. I just want to create a better place, actually, than the place I arrived into. That's what I would like to be part of, Yeah.
Well, it certainly feels like you're well on your way with that one, in terms of your part. So we are coming towards the end of the show. So I'd just like to end with, if there was one message that you had, one lesson that you've learned, one mantra, what would it be?
Well, it's always the same, actually, and there's so much. I'm a big fan of Rumi, but also of Maya Angelou. And my favourite quote of hers is, it doesn't people might not remember what you said or remember what you did, but they will always remember how they felt. And that's beautiful, because that's how I've experienced people throughout my whole life. How did they make me feel? That's how I remember a person, and how I process the world around me. And the older that I've got, the more that's always in the back of my mind, that I want people. And I wish I'd always known this, but that's just not the way that the suitcase unloads itself. I always want people to come away remembering that they felt good and nice, and that it was a good thing, our interaction, not that it wasn't,
Yeah, I do. Well, I have enjoyed the interaction with you. Thank you, listeners, for listening. Thank you, and remember to unlock your soul, free your life, and live your dreams, and look forward to speaking with you next week, Thursday at 8 p.m. GMT. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Bye.
Unlock your soul, free your life, live your dream. You are listening to Unlock Your Soul Radio with Lorraine White, every Thursday at 8 p.m. GMT.